Hello, everybody, and welcome on in. Happy Saturday or Sunday, wherever you happen to be in the world. Very excited to see ya. Looking forward to having a fun and exciting stream. Let me go ahead and get music on, get the check-in link, and we've already got a question in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the music on. And then also pop in the Ask Questions in the Chat banner. As always, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat on Twitch or on YouTube, wherever you happen to be. And we will get to them as soon as we can. Sweet. We've got, hi, I have a Windows laptop. Is it still possible to attend this workshop? What can I download here for this workshop? So first of all, yes, absolutely. You are still more than welcome to be here. I am always very, very happy to have y'all. There are, with iOS native development on Windows, there are a couple of limitations. If you go ahead and Google iOS, right? So like iOS native development on Windows. I just like that in the chat. Into Google, it'll have the best advice for how to proceed. It is a lot harder, but for the purposes of this workshop, where it's more so follow along, do with me, and I can test run and trial things, you are totally more than welcome to kind of, work on stuff alongside me, and then you can use any IDE pretty much to run it. So I will just go ahead and clarify. So on Windows, use any IDE, VS Code, etc. Then use a starter project from GitHub. Follow along for testing and trial runs. So I think that will answer my question out on here, right? Use any IDE, VS Code, etc. Use a starter project from GitHub because you won't be able to create a project from scratch, and follow along for any testing and trial runs. But besides that, you should be able to pretty much run everything on your own, or pretty much do everything else on your own alongside me. Now for me, I'm going to be using Xcode, which is I'm on a Mac, just so in case you all are not aware. So I'm going to be using the built-in Mac OS tools, mostly because they are the most helpful for developing anything related to Xcode stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get that launched up super quick. I use WSL in Windows to run VS Code coding things. Does that work? I use WSL in Windows to run VS Code or coding things. Does that work, or does it need to be iOS? So it depends on what you want to do. If you want to run an iOS app built in Swift UI, Flutter, or any other frameworks, you need to have either an iOS device. Well, you definitely need to have an iOS, you need to have a Mac OS or iPad OS device. If you want to, for this stream, do we only need to have an ID available? How can you access the built-in Mac OS tools? So for, let me get to this other question first. Anything will work for this stream for actually like getting started and coding along with me. There's no like set requirement. Some things just might be a little bit harder, and that is totally okay. I'm going to get everybody else set up on a GitHub repository. so that you can get started. But to run an iOS app, you need to have the iOS build files, which are only available on macOS. For better or for worse, well, honestly, yeah, for better or for worse, building for iOS is very exclusionary. So you really need to have an iOS native build system in order to do it, professionally or even semi-professionally. For the purposes of learning, you really do not need anything. You don't need a specific machine. For the stream, do we only need to have an IDE available? How do we access the built-in Mac OS tools? So if you are on Mac, I would recommend finding Xcode on the iOS App Store. Or not the iOS App Store, but technically the Mac OS. So you're looking for Xcode on the Mac OS App Store. And then you will go ahead and find it on there, download the most recent version you can. And in your case, you could either create a new project or clone a Git repository and go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get us started on a GitHub repository in here. So cool. So for today's app idea, anyway, for today's app idea, I was thinking of creating a random name selector, pretty much. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen on here on GitHub. And that is for the actual app idea that I had for today. I'm going to make this spacing in here make a little bit more sense for my machine. There we go. I've got a second monitor now, hooray. But I still need to figure out how to hook it up to this existing PC. So it's going to be a while until we can actually use it. But hopefully within the next couple of days, we will be able to create something fun on here. Anyway, so let's go ahead and start off with my GitHub thing. Select myself as the owner here. I am on github.com/new, by the way. So that is for creating new repositories. And then I also am going to create an app repository called the name jar. Name jar spelled like that. Description, this will be hello. Thank you for stopping by. We have an iOS native application built with Swift UI for a random name, selection, group, division, and other tasks relating to selecting a person out of a list of people. We're going to make this repository public because this is going to be Global Hack Week, but generally there is differences between public and private repositories. Public, as it says, anyone on the internet can see this repository. You choose who can commit, which effectively says who can add changes. While private is going to be you can choose who can see and commit to this repository. We're going to make a public repository. In your case, if you are ever making your own repository, you can choose either public or private. We are going to pick and add in readmes and git ignores and licenses later. For now, we're going to stick with a very blank repository. And we are going to go ahead and follow these steps, right? So if you've kind of done this thing before, create a new file, upload an existing file, or create a new repository on the command line, or push an existing repository from the command line. So which one we pick depends on the settings that we will select in our Xcode app. So if I go in here and I've launched up my Xcode, you can see my last couple of projects, which have mostly been Global Hack Week stuff. The sad part of my current job as a teacher is that I do not get to do as much fun development stuff. Either way, but so many other upsides, so it is what it is. In this case, we are going to actually go ahead and in here, click on create a new project. And that for me opened up a new window, which I can show y'all hopefully in a second. No, I cannot. That is so unfortunate. I'm actually gonna real quick. Yeah, because then when I'm doing that won't help. Okay. Anyway. So I have the option to select a template for my new project to either pick multi-platform, iOS, macOS, watchOS, tvOS, visionOS, the driver kit, or other. We are going to be building an iOS app today, and it will be like just a standard app. There are other options like document or game or AR, app playground, sticker packs, iMessage apps, or Safari extensions, as well as frameworks and static and metal libraries. We're just going to stick with our basic iOS app. Now, will you let me share my screen now? No, you will not. Very cool. So I will name this name jar. I have an iOS developer account, so the team will be myself. The organization identifier will be my identifier. For the interface, we're going to use Swift UI. We will use Swift as the language. We will not create a testing system for this one. For storage, interesting. Swift data. For modeling and persisting your app's data using new Swift code. For data modeling and management. Language macros. A model container, initializer considerations. The predicate fetching, leveraging Swift UI for Swift data. A simple to-do app with a to-do model and a to-do item. Updating those items, bringing it all together. Absolutely. Okay, we're going to stick with Swift data here because I think it'll be cool. Won't host it on the cloud for now. We're going to stick with name jar in here. Now for actually saving this repository, we're going to place it into my documents folder in here. And then also create a Git repository on my Mac so I can actually share hopefully this screen with y'all. Yes, perfect. Beautiful. So now that I've gone through a lot of these blurbs, right, you can see in my documents, right, there are a few different repositories. I'll just go ahead and pop it right in here. It'll create one, a repository. For code, Xcode. Just responding to this question in the chat real quick that I got about what code editor I need to answer that. Xcode, if you would like the same one as mine, for Macs only. VS Code recommended for Windows. I'm going to create a new folder in here and then create a Git repository on my Mac. Once I press create, my computer is going to make a little bit of noise for a minute or two. And then from there, we will be able to go ahead and see more of our repository and have a beautiful and amazing and wonderful time. So I'm going to let it get launched up. In the meantime, check on my stuff here. Jeez, it is humming. I'm going to turn this off real quick. It is spinning, y'all. See, boom. Don't need that. Don't need that. What is this? What is this? Yes, I know. I have to extend my Duolingo streak. We'll do that later. But for now, we go ahead and wait. Can you please explain what Xcode and what Swift UI are? Absolutely. This is a great time to actually go ahead and hop into this stuff. So let's go over like a brief intro of what Xcode and Swift UI are. So for those of you who are not familiar, there are kind of different camps in the world of mobile development as a whole, and also in the other world development, really. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into here, create a new note, close out this too. And am I going to be able to draw in here or no? Won't let me draw. Boo. Yeah, that is sad. Okay, cool. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and just pull up a digital whiteboard. Just like a basic one. What's the one that was? Sure. Let's do this real quick. Oh, I don't want to have to sign up. Fine. Let me do this real quick. I wish I would have thought ahead of this part, but I didn't. Space. Yes. Maybe later. Education. Okay, perfect. Don't want a template right now. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen on this super quick so you can see my whiteboard here. Awesome. Anyway, as I was saying, there are kind of different camps when it comes to mobile app development, right? So you have really your iOS, right? Please let me type. Thank you. Your iOS ecosystem. So this is everything that you would think of like for running an iPhone, and then you have your Android ecosystem, right? So this is if you are running most Samsung phones, also, Google Pixels, most Google phones at this point, etc. So the breakdown in the US is about 60% of US phones and about 45% of the world's phones, right? Are on the iOS ecosystem. Everybody else is on Android for the most part. Now, obviously, there's a couple of exceptions, but these are kind of the two big players that we currently have in the iOS world. So if you want to develop an app just for Android devices, you would use, most likely at this point, some form of development with Java or Kotlin or anything similar to that. So Android only apps, Java / Kotlin with the Android frameworks, where Java is the older version, while Kotlin is the newer version. On the other hand, if you wanted to make an iOS only app, right, you would use at first Objective-C and then also Swift with different frameworks, various frameworks. One of these is the Swift UI framework. right? So that is where kind of this section comes in. Now, your IDE for developing an Android-only app, right? If you were to write code in the native IDE, is Android Studio, right? This is developed by the JetBrains suite, so the same people who make PyCharm and IntelliJ and CLion also make Android Studio, while the native IDE for iOS apps is called Xcode, spelled like so. Now there's also this whole other fun world up here, in which you have, instead of developing just iOS or just Android apps, you develop both apps using one code base and one language, right? So if I pop you in here, pop you in here, I can also have a third option for an app I will develop. I can get these lines to line up nicely. You'll find out eventually I'm very picky about certain things. This is one of them. And then in here, what you can also do is develop a hybrid, right? For lack of a better word. Hybrid app, which is using Flutter, React Native, etc. Cross-platform frameworks. And within those, right, to make an app for that, you would use, instead of using, Xcode or Android Studio, you would use any IDE would work, but the Xcode is usually a very popular option. Very common. So this is the difference between, right, kind of these three little worlds that exist, right? So you might have people developing for right? If you want to develop iOS only stuff, you stick down here. Develop Android only stuff, stick down here. Develop a mix of both. Go down this middle path. There are benefits and drawbacks to developing on native versus developing on cross-platform, right? Or the hybrid approach. Native is, you get access to all the brand new cool stuff. Hybrid, you get to pay, you get to make one code base, whether that's a good or a bad thing. It depends on how complicated your app is. You can have one team of people developing one app using one thing, right? And if they're really, really good at using hybrid resources, they might be faster and probably cheaper than running two separate teams developing these things separately. So hopefully that explains the difference between those two. I know that was a very long explanation, but I think it was hopefully helpful. And it honestly took us really well into explaining on here. My goodness. Hold on. Oh, awesome. I'm glad. My door just slammed for no reason. I feel like a ghost is haunting me in here. Okay, cool. So we have this set up initial name jar app, right, which we created for a model container, mostly for saving our data across different versions of the app. So right now we could, press plus, add in different versions. We click edit, delete a specific version, press done, right? It'll actually stay across different versions. So this is a good template idea for what this app, would look like. And this is really a great example of starting off an application. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this lovely application up onto GitHub. So jar duplicate. And then I am actually going to follow those steps that it shares on NameJar's GitHub repository here on my computer. So it says push an existing repository from the command line. So git remote add origin, git branch -m main, and git push -u origin main. So I'm going to open up my terminal and type in all of those extra steps. So if I share this, open up my window, in here, you will see my own terminal window, right? So I will go ahead and write out git remote add origin, and then copy over this lovely link. Then run git branch -m main. This is to change the official name of our branch. And then git push -u origin main. So this pushes up our recently created repository straight up onto GitHub. So now if I share my screen, you'll see that we have on GitHub this lovely repository, right, that just has the project that I created with item and NameJar and content view. Now, if you would like to follow along with my project and be able to use GitHub without, worrying about my things, I strongly recommend clicking on this button that says fork, changing this owner to your own name. You can leave it as NameJar and click and either check or uncheck this and create a fork to have your own version of NameJar. That way you can use your own version and kind of work alongside me if you would like. The versions can exist without messing with each other. So once again, highly, highly, highly recommend, if I zoom in here really, really big, to find this fork button and create your own version of the repository. This button here. If you want to star the repository, that allows for you to see any changes as I make them. So fork is to make your own version, and then star is to create a favorite. And then that is a fantastic question. What should we even fork/star? This is the GitHub repo that you need. So that is that, and we're actually going to leave this up as a comment on here for a minute or two. Let people copy that over if they would like. So like I said, click fork. Feel free to pick your owner here, right? I have a couple, like this one's a good example. Create fork will go from there. I should start using my GHW repos section again. But that is a great idea to do there, right? I'm the only person watching, so you don't have to press this. But fork if you would like to share, and star if you would like to get notifications on your GitHub as you see my changes, would both be very helpful. That is what I would personally recommend. For your forks, as I make changes, you can make them yourself, or you can go ahead and pull in changes from my fork. We'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. But now let's go ahead and walk through some steps of how to set up our GitHub repository. Okay, so let me show y'all an example of a really, really good GitHub repository for a Swift UI app. At least I believe this is Swift UI. It might be still in Swift. Oh yeah, this is Swift 4. This is about a 10-year-old app. Either way, this is an iOS weather language app, right? So they talk about notices, version 4, right? Different versions that were created, screenshots and features, right? So they have a README as well as a build, and then different requirements on the bottom. So this is an example of a good README, right? As well as a license that they have, in here. So these are examples of how you could recreate a good README. So this is a couple of things that you want to add into any new GitHub repository. First thing is README. So for now, we're just going to create a new README called namejar. So go ahead and click commit changes here, create readme.md, and commit directly to the main branch. So for those of you now who are using a fork and are following along, if I create namejar, copy the main branch only, right, and then create a fork, you can see that this is up to date. If you click this sync fork button, right, you can see that as I make changes, you can pull in changes into your own fork. Just in case you end up having to miss a section or fall behind. That is what I would personally recommend. All right, going back to here, we have the readme empty. If I actually add in a space here, right, so you saw hashtag namejar there. If I now add in a space here, you'll see in the readme, we now have formatting in here. This is for namejar. That is because this .md actually starts for markdown. So this is a markdown file. So we can use a markdown style formatting in here, which is really helpful as we're beginning to lay out our README. Then we will also want to add a new file here. We can use the GitHub UI to do so. We can also always, upload, and we could still use our terminal, right? So if I were to hop in here and want to create files using terminal, I could do so as well. I like the GitHub native command line interface tools, so we will go ahead, not command line interface, even the GitHub online UI. So create a new file, and this next file that we will create is a .gitignore. And in here, you'll see as soon as we filled in the name for .gitignore, we can now pick what we call a .gitignore template. And this shows all of the different languages that we might develop with, right? That we can see have existing gitignore templates. So this is everything from C++ to Java to Go, right? To things that are a little bit, maybe some of us have not heard of, like scrolling through this list. Honestly, a lot of these things I am not familiar with. So I always add in the Xcode in here. So X user data, this is like the user data folder, a lot of playgrounds, Swift package managers. This is once you start adding packages into your project. If you do not want to add these in, this is helpful. And then build. And then asking for specific sections in here for things that we might include in our gitignore. So this is the official There's also a very annoying file in Xcode for .ds store that I always just stick in here as well. That has, you cannot see my screen. That's right. There we go. Sometimes I do that whenever I reshare my screen, you'll see it. And it ends up being annoying. So if you ever are missing my screen, just let me know on there, right? So we have DS store, and then the so that we just added in here in the Objective Swift specific. Besides that, we are choosing the git ignore template for Swift. Just by scrolling, you can find it right on down here. Perfect. So this is the official change, right? So now I'll go ahead and create my git ignore file. And then the last thing that I'll show off how to do super quick is the license file. So if you type in the words license, you'll see GitHub already also populates this really cool menu that says choose a license template. And it actually takes you into this section, talks about what you will talk about. So kind of pretty much it's different licenses that are recommended. But the MIT license is the shortest and also the most common one, especially in software. It does not allow patent use, which is a big one. There are also, license and copyright notices and various conditions, but this is a great kind of initial license to include in any of your open source projects, which for at least me is the way that we are doing it. So we're going to go ahead and add in here, right? So we have reviewed it and added it to the main branch. And now we have all of these lovely things set up for our project. So I do want to, I think, thinking about what we want to get done today is, in addition to, creating our project and doing all of those lovely things that come with the creation of our project, right? Like setting up the repository and sharing it with everybody. I would love to take some time we'll create our README and make it look nicer later. Same with builds and requirements and everything along those lines. But I think for now, might be a good time to focus on the development a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and share this screen super quickly and show off what this app looks like. So we have some Swift data start items, right, with specific items that we save, our name jar app, and then our content view as well. And I will actually show off this if I launch this app on a new physical device. So I'm going to open up a simulator. So this is a fake version of an iPhone 16 Pro running iOS 18.2 that I just have spun up on my Mac device. So I can, run my project while it's in development without having to connect my phone every time. I do always have a cable plugged into the back of my development Mac. This is so if I ever want to test, anything with this physical cable, like plug it straight into my phone, I am able to do that. And it's a relatively quick and pretty painless process. So you'll see here, right, this is a completely blank phone, as if it was just literally just created, and straight onto it, we install our name jar app, right? Which for now is pretty much just the template of the app that we create whenever we say we want to use Swift data, which is perfectly fine. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a second to boot up. and then watch it from there. Perfect. Beautiful. So this is our lovely app. As you can see here, if I press the plus button, you will see an entry is added with today's date and my current time in my time zone. If I wait another minute or so, let's go through these. Give it another 30 or so seconds. If I then press again, right now it's showing me 5:43:49, right? It also actually is showing on my screen some information about the app. If I let the time tick over to 44, which it should do in about 2 seconds. Perfect, right? Then right on there, we now have various different records. I can click on them, right? And that generates a lovely little view that says item at 5:111 at 5:44 exactly. I can also edit records, delete them, and press done. If I press home, go back to the app, right? They still exist. And I believe if I attempt to close out the window here, so close out the simulator and reopen it, I should still have the same records from 5:39 and or 5:43 and 5:44 that I added in earlier. But we'll see if that actually works. Fun fact, I've never actually used Swift data, so we'll see if it does what we want it to. But even if it doesn't, we will modify this app so that it works with what we want it to work with. So we are attaching NameJar to the phone on here, right? It's on iPhone 16. It is booting up. It is running. It is running. It is running and perfect, right? So now if I show you my screen, we are on the same device and we are seeing, yeah, at 5:43 and 5:44. And now at 5:45, we have another different record of these items, right? So I can exit out to home, right? I can attempt to close the app. If I remember the shortcut, perfect, right? Close out of NameJar, reopen it, and we're seeing the same records. So that's the cool part of the app, right? And kind of getting to do all of these fun things and actually saving this data. So we already have a lot of this process done, which is super cool. So now if we're actually planning out our app, I do have a couple of ideas for how I want to do things. So I think that going back to that little whiteboard might help, actually, that I just had earlier. That free. Yeah, let's start a whiteboard, please. Thank you. Okay, cool. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and create this. Lovely app idea, so cool. So if I go ahead and share this screen instead as a change of pace. Oh, my goodness. You can see in here I have 4 little app ideas. So we will, somewhere on the top here, right, have a little heading, right, say name jar. Not exactly the most beautiful design. That does not matter for now. So in name jar, you will have, and I've kind of thought through this for how we will actually do this. We will have different saved name lists, and that's where we'll use that almost plus button area, right? So in here, we have this, right, with the little plus button and all that. And then we would have the little lists going down this way, right? So this is list 1, list 2, list 3, and so on, right? And so on and so forth, right? Lists of different names. Then as we click on the list, we would then have, information about what is in the list, the ability to add or remove names from the list, plus or minus, right? Add or remove names from the list. So then in here, we have, stuff like name 1, name 2, so on and so forth. Name 3, right? So on, leave all that. So then it should also have on the bottom here the ability to, create a list. I don't create a list. Select one name, and then also divide into groups. So something along those lines might be kind of helpful when I'm actually thinking for the name jar, right? So we'll have a list of different names. So we click on the list, we can see different names. Select one name, divide into groups. We'll actually go through the app ideas of making this prettier and go through different design processes. I need a quick water break and bathroom break. So I am going to go ahead and call a quick break right up here. So quick break for about 5 or so minutes. I'll see you back at, let's say, 5:55, 6-ish. In the meantime, please make sure you are asking any and all questions in the chat. Hope you all are having a good one. I will bring, and I'll be back in just a few minutes. Welcome back, y'all. Sorry for the slight delay, but we are back. We've got questions in the chat. What program are you using for your wireframes? Is that a part of Swift UI? The program that I was using for my wireframes today was Mural. I usually, for things that are called high fidelity wireframes, so these are, like more thought out, plus prototypes. For all of those, I use Figma. But anything really works, like pen and paper works if you want it to work. So just go with whatever feels best for you. How can I run and emulate the program on VS Code? So this is the one part that VS Code cannot do, because unless you are, that's Mural's what I was using. Unless you are running on a Mac, you won't be able to compile the iOS binaries, so you will not be able to run the program on VS Code. If you are on a Mac, running Swift apps in VS Code, Mac, there's a whole section of here on configuring VS Code for Swift development that I would personally recommend. If I have the project running on Xcode, do I need to install anything? When trying to see the preview, it gives me some errors. The first place that I would check is this, is your general and your signing and capabilities in here. So I'll show it to you on my end so you can take a look. Make sure that your signing and capabilities, right? You have your own team and your own bundle identifier. And that should usually help. For general, make sure you have the minimum deployment set to mine. And then you will also need the iOS SDK that should come installed with Xcode. You should not need anything else. But if you are still having more errors, after stream, feel free to send me a message on Discord, and if I can, and if I have some time, I'm going to take a look at it. Or you can also go ahead and consult the internet for anything there that you might need. But that should be helpful for that, hopefully. Cool. All right. Hopefully that answers everybody's questions so far. I want to go ahead and create our list view. So we're going to modify this existing template to begin using our lists. Let's hop in here. I'm going to go ahead and click on here, and you'll see a refactor to rename. I'm going to rename all of the references to item to name list. Or hold on. Yeah, so we'll make this a name list. And if it would let me, then do that. So let's refactor, rename. We'll do name list right in here. Let's enter, right? Then what we're also going to do is actually create a new file, call it name.swift. You'll see in here our name list, right? If I go ahead and copy this, rename it to name list.swift, and then in here, go ahead and copy the foundation and Swift data to define a class called name. And then in here, instead of var timestamp, which is going to be a date, I will create a var name list, which is going to be an array of name objects. And so for initializing, we'll use a name list, which is of type or name, and self.namelist should be just equal to name list to initialize an empty list of names. Now for a name, var, we'll create a var first name. How do you go into those settings? Yeah, great question. I'll show you super quick. If you click on this top section here, and then click on targets down here. And then in general is the first place to check for all of these. And then in signing and capabilities as well. Also, sometimes for previews, especially if you're running Xcode for the first time, restarting everything also helps with previews. So name jar app. Yes, I am aware that first name is a type string. Var last name is also a type string. And so you'll set first name is of type string. And last name also of type string. And then we'll say self.first name is first name, and then self.last name is last name. Cool. So for now, we have created this lovely little array of names. And now if we go into the name jar app content view, we will be able to see that we have kind of created chaos in here, which makes sense. So let's start in here. We're saying for each item in. So what is it saying? We cannot, just take out these items in here. So for each, we're saying that for our name list, item at item.timestamp, we cannot do that because, well, and then they're saying the label, we'll do that. So we're going to go ahead and comment out this section. And then label will be, let's also do the var title, which will just be a string. And then title, type string, and self.title is equal to title. Let's go back to the name jar app, content view, and so we'll say for each item in, yeah, so for each, say item dot I should just be able to stick with item.title. And then look in here, new item. And create a list of empty names and see what that looks like right now. Cool. So let's go ahead and see if this works as a basic start. And it may not. We'll find out. You could also attempt to comment out this section and then say, what about the date format, all of that. Item at. Could just say actually item title and see what happens from there. So let's go ahead and open this up. See if the preview cooperates with us. I can create a new list called title. If I go in here, it goes title. And I can create a bunch of different lists called title. Right now, all that will do is create empty lists of title and track this section. So I would love to create this title list with a number of some form, right? So potentially keep track of some counter in which we name the list based on the counter and how far it has incremented, right? So var counter equal to 0. Right, so we will say add item counter plus equals 1. That new item counter in here, and the name list being name. Essentially like so. Interesting. So trying to figure out how to do that might be a little bit more complicated. But name list, name, right? So this just creates an empty list. I would love to be able to add in a new title. So like if instead of, having every list that we create just be called title, let's add in so that when we press this add item button with the action add item, instead of, the edit button, right? So the edit button, if I click on this, is there edit button? Yeah, so toolbar, there are 2 items. Are you a mobile developer? I am primarily. But yeah, I mostly do mobile stuff. Toolbar item, button action, add item. Yeah, so that's the action. So you're in edit button. In here, edit button. The whole section here of the edit button structure that I want to take a closer look at. Okay, cool. Got our content view. Beautiful item.title. So for the action add item, so I want to add alert view with a text box in Swift UI. So we'll create a new variable called show alert. And then up here, create an @state private var show alert equal to false to start. And then in here, right below the detail, right? Text, select an item. So the item selection now work. So we have this sample alert. Go on the bottom of the body. The body is down here. So maybe one higher. Yeah, body, some view, alert, title, actually, dot alert. Try Control I. Nope, not that Control I. This one. Nope, not that one either. There we go. No. No. Oh, formatting. Formatting failed. Okay, extraneous code at top level. Why? Let's see why. Got it. I see why. Would you say is the most different from working in a mobile code base than other fields? I think the main difference is honestly like scope of projects and the type of work that you're doing. Mobile is there's really no front end, back end like full stack distinction because of how like quick mobile is and how like really the back end work is just primarily done for you outside of the mobile realm. So there really isn't the traditional distinctions in the same way as we see them in web dev. So the work tends to be more different, more robust, more there tends to be more variety, which I personally really enjoy. But you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. Which I really like. Yeah, so like the job definitions tend to be less strict, which I personally find helpful. But to each their own. Kind of, some people like the rigidity of their roles. So I think it really depends. Let's go ahead. And also, mobile at a massive behemoth is different than mobile on your own. Is different than what I'm doing right now, which is like mobile in more of a teaching context. Let's see if this works. Aha. Yeah, so it doesn't work true. And then okay. What I want to do is then call add item, then pass in. We'll then do name, be of type string, title being name, add item, because toolbar content. What the? Do that as nicely as possible. Add item. $sign text. Right? Ambiguous use of toolbar content. What do you mean? Hold on. Ambiguous use of toolbar. That is a new error. Add item. Let's try this for now. So instead of add item, right? So I have add an item here. If I let I'll let this thing do their thing. Hi, what are we building? We are building a name picker, kind of like a name generator from a list. It's been our first 90 minutes of development, and we spent about 40 minutes on setup. We're not very far, but it's going okay so far. Enter a list title below. Hello. So now, though, even though I've created a list called hello, it's still called title because I have no way to pass in this title into the text here. Just fine. Add item. Name will be of type string. So somehow changing this add item function makes them not like the toolbar content, which is interesting. So let's see. Change name of Interesting. Interesting. I'm trying to figure out what to do here. So we have new item. All right, we have name list, title. I wonder if I could just that title here. I could just do $sign text. Move the binding. See what happens. Let's try this. So test. Okay. Hello. Beautiful. Okay. Nice. That works. So text to string. Whenever I want to add an item, though, I also want to set text equal to nothing. Let's try this again. Test. Perfect. Okay, beautiful. So now we create a list of different, now we can create lists, right, of different names and have those names display the lists. So I want to use the navigation link to go to and instead of showing the item dot title, I want to show the item dot count of the names in the name list. So let's do name count and then show off the item.namelist.count. That potentially, let's restart that. Oh, and then you're missing it first. Apologies. So now, and then if I say text item dot list dot first, yeah, so we'll do that for now. So now whenever I make a new list, I can give it a title, and then when I go into the list, we'll see that the count of names in the list will always be 0. Why is it always uppercase? Hello. That's weird, but whatever. Right, so then the number of names in the list is always 0. Cool. This is our content view. So I think that whenever I want to use navigation link to a new view UI, so instead of staying in the content view, I will use a navigation link to head to a destination. Of detail view. It should not need a label. It should not, 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 now if I create a new empty file, call it detail view, Swift. Perfect. I should just be able to go in content view. And I should call detail view. Just like that. But no, cannot find detail view in scope. Don't know what to tell you. Detail view will be of type view. Perfect. Then we will need up our body, some view. Yeah, let's just make you. Text hello world and then name list. Or new content view, there's a preview. Instead of content view, we are just going for detail view. Let's try that, see if that works. Failed to build the scheme. Why are we failing to build the scheme? Scheme looks fine to me. Let's try the detail view here, see if we can load this guy up. Okay, you do not like that. I'll give you a second to figure out why. Let's pull this up. Nope. Extra trailing closure past him. Call what? Hold on. So let's see. Application link. See if this will work. Detail view. Try that. See how this will work. In other news, I have the world's most comfortable blanket right now, and I am obsessed with it, and that is all. So let's click on this. Get a title. Click OK. Click on it, it says hello world. Perfect. So it actually does go into detail views. Sweet. So I think we'll end up like figuring out how to pass in data. Use. Maybe I'll just use the model context instead. Yeah, I think I might. Hold on, friends. I need like 30 seconds. BRB. Oh. It's funny, I didn't realize that was somebody else's face still on there. Let's edit the audio avatar so that it's me now. There we go. That's me. Beautiful. Okay, anyway. So I was saying, let's see if we can use the model context in here. We compare side by side compare. No, not that one. Canvas. Cool, beautiful. So now I have to show concept view on this side and detail view on this side. You can compare and contrast the differences, right? So in here, I have import Swift UI, import Swift data, right? Private var string alert, the text I shouldn't need. Might need the environment model context here. So we're gonna hop that in here. And then the query, private var names. Items is instead names, which is instead a list. Should we just be a singular name list? Our name list. Element is not a member. What? What on earth are you talking about? We'll find out. Okay, var body, navigation, split view, list for each item, go to detail view, toolbar. I think I want to keep the toolbars. But we'll see what we actually end up doing with those. Cancel, that's the alert, that's the message, add item, delete item, and then enable is.self in memory true. Interesting. Let's try and run this on device. See what happens. Build failed. So yeah, apparently might just be a list of name. Question mark. See if that works. Because that may work. Not sure how, but it should in theory. Build succeeded. Perfect. There we go. Okay, so we're going to share the other screen instead. And my apologies in advance. I'm going to move again because I'm sitting so strangely. I was being super wiggly. There we go. I think I'm a little bit more comfortable now. Beautiful. So we've launched the app on iOS right now, or on iPhone 16 here. We'll see what happens. Well, we'll see what happens. Do title. Then we will do hello. Now, theoretically, when we enter, we should still just see hello world and hello world. Perfect. Okay, beautiful. So the app still theoretically does work. Now, I would love to try something in the next 20 minutes. To get the lists. Yeah, to get the list for items detail view. To get like how to pass data between two different views. So I think I want to try. Okay, let's try this. So that's the environment, auto context, query. I mean, that might also work, but it's just such chaos. I don't know how it will work. Let's add in this stuff from the toolbar for now. Like if I copy over this toolbar code, and then the detail select an item code without the alert though. Try that. No. Toolbar goes below the body. Let's do a command shift R. Formatting failed because of extraneous code at the top level. Sure, I'm aware of this fact. The toolbar has a list. Yeah. Sure, let's try that. Do not need a navigation split view. Everything else I can do. Instead of turning just the text, let's try a list. Each name, list, name, in. Then we could just do for this stuff, just say label. The text would be name dot first name. Undelete, perform delete items. No, this something here looks weird. Once it said try the hello world stuff, yeah. Let's copy over this body down to the preview and then figure out what to delete in here. Right, so we don't want the navigation split view. So we're doing the navigation split view. We're getting rid of one of these on the bottom. Next, for each item in. We're not doing items, we're doing name list. And then name, we're not doing a navigation link or a label. We're instead just doing a text, where instead of text, it'll just be name dot first name, like that. Yep. On delete, we'll perform delete items, toolbar item, toolbar action. There will be no action associated with this one right now. Or I guess we could do an add item action. Just do the add item and then the detail. Select an item. There will be no alert for now, so we can just delete this part. I think the detail is for the text, navigation split controller maybe. And then yeah, for the title, so the new item would be first name or name. First name is name, and then last name is also name. Cool. I'm not sharing the screen where I'm actually coding. Let's share this instead. Cool. I think I'm going to delete from the name class the last name identifier. I do not see the need for it right now, so we're going to remove it. First name, and then first name. Failing to build the scheme, but why? Let's see. In theory, this should just load. Perfect. It is a blank screen. Just fine. Let's go to the content view and see what we can judge up here. How did you learn Swift? Swift was actually my first programming language. I learned it all the way back when I was in high school. Took a few classes on intro to mobile development, then took a break to experiment a little bit in Java, do all of my computer science coursework. And now I teach computer science on the day-to-day, and Swift I still have a soft spot for, so I tend to stick with it. Hello. There's my list. Okay, and it is showing just the links. Makes sense. They have not actually created anything to show the information in here. But in order to, I think, not break anything, we're going to push these changes up to GitHub. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to open up my terminal window here, and I'm still from earlier, right? I added my documents folder, and I went into name jar, and I've set up my origin. So this is my final GitHub change. First thing I will need to do is run a git pull to get my changes from earlier. And that gets my git ignore, my license, and my readme file. Then I will do git add all, which adds all of the changes that I've made to my project. Then run git commit -m. And I usually call this part 1 progress. Also going to get rid of this comment here because we already answered it. And then I do git push, and since I've already set my upstream earlier, I can just run git push to get all these changes up. And now, if you go to my lovely GitHub page, you will find them right on down here. If I refresh, you will see that the last change, part 1 progress, happened just now. So for those of you who are following along and hit this fork button, right? If you now go into your fork, you can see that my branch is now 4 commits behind. I can hit this sync fork button and update my branch to get caught up on all of my changes for those of you who are interested in doing that. And so now you'll see my 2 branches kind of exist together. Excuse me. Jeez. All right, I had a big dinner before this. Delicious. Okay. Anyway, that is, I think, it for the official part of this stream. Want to thank you all very much for coming. It is my first stream of 2025, and I'm excited to see what cool learning stuff we can accomplish in the new year. If you are looking to join somebody for one of their upcoming streams, I highly recommend saying hi to Jocelyn in a little over 2 hours. She's going to be getting started with our very first API request, building up some cool web app stuff, I'm sure. So feel free to hang out with her at 10 p.m. Eastern time or 3 a.m. Greenwich Mean. I don't have the IST ones off the top of my head. Unfortunate. But 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 a.m. Greenwich Mean is your upcoming one. Then we've got UT at 5 a.m. Eastern Time or 10 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. He is going through our Learning HTML, CSS, and JS by Building Mini Project series. He's on part 4 already. We've been blazing through it, which is super fun. We got Tetris mini event, and then making better hacks faster with GitHub Copilot, taking us into another stream, recapping your awesome Global Hack Week with me. So it'll be a very, very fun and super cool time. I hope you all have an awesome time until then. If you have any questions between now and part 2 of this stream coming up tomorrow, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be around to help you answer them. But generally, it's been a blast. App seems to be going okay-ish, which is good. I think we learned a lot of stuff together. And yeah, I want to thank you all very, very much for watching and stopping on by. I'm going to stay on here for another minute or two. Make sure that there are no last-minute questions from any of our lovely audience. And if not, I'm going to head out and see you all, honestly, not too long. Yeah, I'll be back. And that's pretty much it on my end. All right, last call for questions, hackers. Last call for questions. Got about... thanks. I'll try doing this on my Mac later. I love Swift development. It is one of my most favorite things. There's something very seamless about the UI. It clicks in my head. I don't know if it's the fact that I'm familiar with it or what. Doesn't matter. I love it. So if you like it, let me know. If you end up hating it, that's okay too. Let me know too. If there's a lot of complaints, maybe we'll do a Learn Flutter with Kari stream as I attempt for, I don't know, whatever time at this point to get into cross native. Or maybe we'll do build a web app with Kari because I have not built a web app in forever. And somebody needs to redo their portfolio website. That's me. So we'll see what we can do. Alrighty. On that note, it is time for me to head off. Bye, everybody. See you all later.